All right, thanks, guys. So basically, just wanted to quickly go over, or not so quickly, information gathering and social media attacks to gain access or electronic access to companies. This is me. Basically, I spent most of my time as a geek in New York. Graduated engineering college, went straight into the telecom space, then got into ISP, then started my own computer consulting firm, sold it to Gateway Computer, and went down to New York City to work as a forensics analyst. It takes a very special person to do forensics, and I'm not that special, especially when it came to child pornography. That pretty much did it for me. So I went to the other side of the table, which was ethical hacking, because it was interesting doing forensics and the aftermath. I just wanted to see how they were actually doing it. So with that, I got into a lot of encryption, and then now I'm basically working for a financial institute, protecting them against guys like me. So I also have a side company that does iPhone application development. We released the Data Loss DB, the iHack Charities, and Exotic Liability apps, which I think we've recently just taken down because 5.0 wasn't compatible, and we have to do some updating for that. So here we go. So the two attacks that I basically wanted to, I usually talk about bringing awareness to these attacks, but since I kind of see you guys as my peers, I'm actually just going to go over how to do the attacks, and then hopefully you can figure out how to prevent them later. So the two that I wanted to talk about was basically just the evil twin attack, and then kind of a man in the middle with Facebook attack. So does anybody here actually do any evil twin attacks using social media? Show of hands. Bueller. And how about man in the middle attacks with Facebook? All right, awesome. So the evil twin attack is something that basically I started doing because I was tired, fat, and lazy, and basically was tired of dressing up like the AT&T person trying to walk into corporate America. Or try to do phishing attacks with traditional email, things like that. So the evil twin attack is basically using social media as a new platform for old tricks, old phishing tricks, old click here tricks, things like that. So the things that you kind of need is you do need to know a little bit about social media, how to, if you're going to do this with permission, then you don't really have to worry about this first step, but if you're not going to do this with permission, then you need to learn how to create social media accounts anonymously, because to track them back is actually quite simple. You need a computer with reliable OS, and then you either need balls like SkyDog or, again, permission would be nice. So how this got started, basically with the iPhone development company, when you first released iPhone apps, it was very easy for those apps to be seen in the iTunes store because there were so few, but as it started growing, those apps started getting pushed back, not very good with popularity. So people basically had to use other ways to promote their apps, so that we jumped into social media to help promote things like Elvis Mobile. We did some of the Disney apps, and we still needed some social media tactics to be able to promote those apps. So with that work, I basically, kept my evil hat on and said, wow, there's no social media security whatsoever for all this general marketing that we're doing. That and basic laziness. Again, testing integrity of corporate America using the traditional ways is very time consuming, and I'm very lazy. And then I'm very notorious for visiting friends that work for Fortune 500 companies without checking into the security desk, signing in, getting cards, and just showing up at their cubicle saying hello. And this was another good way to basically to do that. So the evil twin, how it works is basically you need to do a lot of information gathering on your target. This is basically the bare minimums of the attack. Anything that I've done less than this hasn't worked at all, but the bare minimum is creating 3 LinkedIn accounts. I mostly only use LinkedIn for this particular attack. You can use other social media venues, but LinkedIn seems to be the most successful for me. Starting to get to Facebook, and we'll go over that a little bit later. Of the 3 people, you need a C-level, someone that's very high, usually the oldest person in the company. Create a LinkedIn account for them. Middle management, someone with cloud. I usually go after someone in HR or in accounting. And then a nobody or a lot of common connections. And then from there, you also need a lot of patience. So let's go over basically a real hypothetical Nashville example. So going here, I basically noticed that you guys have, a bank of Nashville. This is a great example of a target that I would love to attack, hypothetically. And the first thing that I see here, besides the protecting your identity is easier than you think, is they have no social media campaigns or buttons or any social media anything on their site, which tells me that they're a little behind the times, so they know nothing. Either their policy is no social media whatsoever, which is going to make this attack a whole lot easier. These steps are basically, again, just informational gathering. I think this is on the About Us page on the company information. And here, basically taking a look at the board members. Again, a C-level person, someone very high in the level here. I would basically find out how many of these guys actually do have social media accounts. And then from there, start creating some fake LinkedIn accounts using their name. And then if you dig down even further, you'll notice that they actually put a ton of information that you can use for LinkedIn. So here, I would definitely go after William, just for the fact that William has a nickname. So if William actually does have a LinkedIn account, you can create the same account using his same name, but maybe just using a nickname, like Bill, or a nickname. And then from there, you basically... so how many of you guys have LinkedIn accounts? I'm sorry, maybe I should ask that question. Okay. How many of you know for a fact, or how many of you have more than 50 people that you're connected to on LinkedIn? Okay. How many of you know for a fact that all of those people are really who they say they are? Okay. So when you go to all social media has this new little button that basically when you can either accept the request, deny the request, or now you can basically accept or click down on the accept and basically send a message. And what I basically tell people that's there to make sure that that particular person is really who you think they are. So if they send you a LinkedIn request, don't accept, send them a message first, ask them a question that maybe you guys would only know to find out if it's really them or not. Or just keep hitting accept and find out what the consequences are, I guess. But in the LinkedIn profiles, I'm sure you probably see all this information that would go into LinkedIn. So, based on this, it looks like he has his job history, which would be great to fill in. It looks like he has a ton of his hobbies here. He has a number of associations. He has a number of his other officer credentials that he's part of, where he came from. He actually has some university and schooling in there, which is another section of LinkedIn. The first couple attacks that I did, I basically filled out just a number of things. And if you've used LinkedIn, LinkedIn actually has a percentage of your profile that's being completed. And to get to 100, you have to do all this kind of stuff. The attacks that I've done successfully, the minimum is, I think, 23%, which consists of name, one company, a photo, and I think they make you put your schooling now, one school. So just putting that minimum things on there gets you like 20%. But he actually has enough data here to get pretty close to 100. So we basically, again, these are the things that you would put on there. The really cool or interesting thing here is what LinkedIn will do next by doing a ton of information gathering, filling out as much of the profile as you can. You'll see what LinkedIn will actually help you with this particular attack. So again, if you don't have a picture of this particular person that's on the website, usually most of the websites, they love to see those crazy pictures that, of them in their three-piece suit or whatever, especially for banks. But if you can't, then thank you, Google. And just remember that this is not Facebook. So, puppies, cute puppies, things like that, they're not going to work on LinkedIn. That they'll probably call you out on that. So stick with the professional pictures like this. No family, kids. Again, stick with things like that. I think what's really interesting is this actually happened in another scenario that I did. Is if you notice in the background, it says Bank of Nashville CEO stepping down. So on one of the attacks that I was doing, the CEO actually did resign from the company, and I had full control of his LinkedIn account. He didn't have a LinkedIn account. I was it. And when he stepped down, what I was thinking about doing was basically updating a status saying something very bad about the company and how it was a public company and how they were going to go bankrupt, and see how far I could make the stock options drop. But I didn't do that. So by filling that out, LinkedIn, I forgot a very key point here. Those three people, the thing that you have to do that is required for this attack to work, in my opinion, is you have to link those three people together. And what that will do is that it builds a bit of trust, because if they're linked to other people in the company, then they have to be legit, right? So by not linking them together, basically I wasn't getting as many people linking with me as when I actually linked three people together. I got a shitload of people started linking. And the stats for what LinkedIn does is on the top right-hand corner when you log into LinkedIn, you actually see people you may know. And they base this off of keywords that are in your profile and in their profile. So again, the more that you fill out that profile, the more options people will actually start seeing in the people that they may know, and then the groups that they may like, and then also the companies that you may follow. So that basically what LinkedIn is doing here is it's actually getting people coming to you rather than you having to go to them and link in with them. The first test that I did with the three people, I did no proactive LinkedIn connections at all. I just sat there. I was very patient. It took about 5 months before I felt that I had enough ammunition to do my attacks. And in those 5 months, the CEO of the company had over 612 connections. And in these connections, I pray that someday I can have some of the connections that he had throughout his industry, because they were all very high-level CEOs, which was absolutely fabulous. And then I just let them sit there, and everybody just connected me. I ended up getting the VP of HR, a ton of, this might give it away, but a ton of airplane pilots and airplane mechanics. And then pretty much every executive level on other companies that were in their same industry. And then that CEO is actually the one that ended up jumping ship. Again, basically filling out the profile to your own standards. I suggest the picture, name, school, because school will actually do a ton of LinkedIn of people and groups that are based in that school, and then if you can do a number of companies in their background. And actually you don't even have to do realistic or true information. So if you basically want to test the integrity of someone that might have some synergy with that particular company, so we already know that the CEO of a certain industry will connect with other industries, then just in their job history put their company in there with no other information and see how many LinkedIn profiles from that other company will actually link in with you. Again, I've actually done no proactive going out and searching and trying to get people to connect to me, I've let all these attacks basically just sit there, and all of them have had hundreds of people that have basically connected. It's gotten to a point where I've actually added that third person as a nobody, has no association with the company whatsoever, and they've actually gotten hundreds of people that have been associated with their company linked in with them. So a lot of people are basically using the whole how many Twitter followers can I get, the more people I get, the better I am policy, or however that shit works, and they're doing that to LinkedIn, so they basically click as many people that are associated with that to get in with that, which is good for me, but it's really bad for the company. So now what? So from here, basically is, again, because I'm lazy, and I'm very patient, I have waited a couple months. I've been doing this for about 2.5 years now, so I've waited a number of months to where I feel that I can set up a good social engineering or a good attack that will get me invited into the company rather than try to sneak into the company, because it's so much easier to be invited, and you don't have to worry about your heart rate and bad food and all that kind of shit. So using the LinkedIn mail system for access. In this particular, one of the attacks, I basically sent a LinkedIn, I don't call it email or mail, whatever their system is, to the an associate of HR, and I asked them for a courtesy interview. I asked them if they wouldn't mind allowing my nephew to come in to have a job interview as one of the airplane mechanics. I told him I understand he's not qualified and you're in no obligation to hire him, but he needs some interview experience. Would you please bring him in? And, I mean, who's going to say no to the CEO? So a little bit later, I ended up getting some emails from the VP of HR asking me to come in and have an interview as an airplane mechanic. And I don't know shit about airplanes, man. So they brought me in. I was able to... they left me alone in a couple offices. I was able to plug in some USB devices, drop off some CDs, and then the coolest part of it was they actually gave me a tour of the tarmac, which, man, it is loud out there. So I totally understand. If you make fun of those guys with those big ass earmuffs, there's a reason why they have those fuckers on, man. It's very loud out there. So I was able to take pictures. She actually took a picture with me and my potential new supervisor, which was very nice of her. My first attack, I basically also attempted to do malware in tiny URLs and status updates, and that was a bad idea. Because you can only do that once before someone actually figures it out and reports that particular person. So now I do it inside of the mail system instead of doing it publicly. The other thing is a lot of people that click on those links are out of scope of work, and you're not allowed to test I'm not allowed to test the integrity of people that aren't associated with my scope of work. So that was a really bad idea. So if you're going to do a tiny URL with a backdoor or whatever, then just remember that if you're going to do it publicly, you probably only have one shot at it. So try to get as many followers as you possibly can. But you can do it multiple times inside the mail system itself. Join groups. Again, that'll up your status, and it'll actually allow you to take over groups later, because if there's an executive VP in a group that's just kind of hanging and being an associate or giving good content, eventually you can ask to take over the group from whoever owns it, because you're in a higher level position as them, and they'll usually give you permission for those groups. And then as maybe kind of a prank or testing integrity, or showing them that they have no security whatsoever, at the last minute you can always change the location of the Christmas party using social media. And then again, the physical access of testing, you can actually attempt to, and again, this is all hypothetical, but start rescheduling or scheduling secure off-site backup tape delivery on other days. And then again, if you have the uniforms or anything like that. You can actually go in, begin being invited or knowing that they're coming to get you, or you're coming in to get things, and take off-site backup tapes. I actually haven't turned in a lot of the documentation for these attacks because again, this is a very long-term attacks. This is nothing that's very quick, and I'm trying to build basically some resource and reference points for these attacks because eventually I want to build or finish building some tools to help prevent these attacks. So these are, if you're going to do this attack, just keep in mind that you can do it for multiple things in multiple ways, and you can have constant access for your information gathering. Last year we talked about using social media as an information gathering tool to attack certain people. So we attacked the VP of HR because we found out from her Twitter update that when she flew into Chicago, she lost her luggage. She went to Best Buy to get a new cellular card for her laptop based on geocoding. And long story short, we ended up calling Best Buy, having them update the firmware of the cell card to work with the VPN access, which turned out just to be our backdoor to her laptop, which saved us a ton of money from traveling to the conference. So this is constant insider information, if you will, for any other attacks that you're going to do later. And then it's good for job references if you want to use it for a semi-evil way. And then as your attack grows, it's a real pain in the ass to log out and log in as all of these particular users. So I'll show you some tools that marketing uses to maintain multiple social media accounts for evil ways. So any questions on the evil twin attack? Cool. So the man-in-the-middle attack for Facebook was actually just a fluke, but it's turned out to be an incredible attack for me. I love it because it's new, and I haven't figured out a way to prevent this attack yet. Working on it, but right now it's shooting fish in a barrel. So the tools that are needed, you still need a computer, knowledge of social media, Wi-Fi. I started using Firesheep. We actually use, I use different man-in-the-middle tools, but Firesheep is still working. You do have to have an older browser installation, but it's pretty awesome. And I completely understand that Firesheep is more of a gagging or pranking tool, and that's what we were using it for. But again, accidentally discovering some interesting information allowed me to develop this into a corporate attack. And then either you need permissions or brass balls. So Firesheet, how many of you have a Facebook account? How many of you have heard of Firesheet? Awesome. This might give it away, but how many of you maintain a page for your company on Facebook? Awesome. So I was at a conference here in Nashville for PodCamp Nashville. I loaded up Firesheep a couple of years ago, and just was bringing awareness to idiots on SSL or how easy kiddies were able to steal your Facebook accounts. And I think I was able to get 64 people in 8 minutes because I was trying to do my presentation and run the attack at the same time. Basically put everybody's name up on there, and I said, is anybody's name up here? And for some reason, nobody admitted to being up there. So I basically just picked somebody and showed them what I could do with Firesheep. So if you don't know, Firesheep basically captures your cookie and allows you to become that session, and you can update the Facebook status. You can, you're basically the admin of that particular Facebook account. So you can chat with their friends, however you want to do it. Again, just gag, la-di-da. At the end of the conference, a young lady came up and she said, "Hey, that's me up there. Can you go over what you could have done to my Facebook account. So I showed her I could update your status, I could talk to your mom, mess with pictures, throw some porn up there, and she's like, big whoopee, I don't really care about any of that. And then I looked at her options, and I noticed this new option that I hadn't seen before, which was use Facebook as. And when I clicked on it, it was use Facebook pages. So she turned white as a ghost. And she said, please don't click that. So I clicked it. And she was actually maintaining 14 of the Nashville hospitals in this area, their Facebook pages. So she was nice enough to give me the statistics. She had a little over $20,000 to $30,000 of labor of setting up all these pages and maintaining them. And then she got paid on a per like basis. So a couple of the pages actually had a good number, at least for what you think a hospital would have, which was like 4,000 to 5,000 likes per page. So I basically told her, in just a couple minutes, what would happen if I just deleted all of this? And she said she would kill me, and I believed her. So we didn't do that. So we moved on, but from there, again, I was just kind of thinking of ways and things that you can do by taking over Facebook pages. So in the marketing sense, again, she got paid on a per like basis. Well, eventually the CFO is going to come to marketing and say, okay, we've just paid this lady $30,000 for all these likes. Where's my return on investment? Because $30,000, we can buy a ton of Google ads and all this other traditional marketing that I can actually tell you what the return on investment is. And to date, marketing, they couldn't figure out what the true ROI was by all those likes, besides just word of mouth and maybe a little bit more traffic. So what we're starting to see right now is marketing having to come up with a true ROI for all of this money that they spent for their Facebook likes, their Twitter likes, and such. So they're getting into e-commerce. They're getting into using Facebook as actually bringing in money or having some type of value to it, to where they can show their CFOs that they still need money to maintain these things. So by basically taking over this Facebook page, you can imagine of what you can do. So this is just an example of what they're doing. They have buy now buttons, or shop my lists now, things like that. I think I have. And what I'm able to do is in the code basically take over the link to that button. And the reason being is Facebook, until Facebook still doesn't allow you to do e-commerce inside of Facebook per se. They actually do make you. They don't have a shopping cart built in there yet, so they make you go to another site, iframe it to an existing shopping cart, and again, this link is basically a URL that goes to that. So what I did is basically change that link to go to my site, steal the credit card information, steal the personal information, and then send them back to this site and kind of seeing, or sending them back to the thank you page, seeing what happens. The huge security risk based on this is when I presented the first attack to the CTO looked at the CSO and said, how could you let this happen? And the CSO looks at the CTO and he goes, I didn't even know we had a Facebook page. And it's true, because marketing, you don't need permission. This is an external, cloud-based solution. So marketing is running with this. They're running with their Twitter thing. They're not keeping security in the loop that they're doing any of this, right? So all the logs and everything are showing traffic as normal, but they have no way of maintaining or finding out what's going on with this. And again, it's like shooting, fish in a barrel, which is a lot of fun. So people are starting to basically find out about, I'm waiting for Facebook to enable SSL by default. So until then, one of the ways to keep a backdoor, keep maintaining, is in the Facebook page, you'll actually see manage admins. And what I've been doing is basically creating Facebook pages, or Facebook accounts with the same username, and finding out who the admins are. So I should probably explain that my apologies. So in order to have a Facebook page, there's no username and password to log directly into a Facebook page. You have to have a personal Facebook account in order to create a page. And then there's a link association with that. And you can have multiple people basically connect to that page and be admins for them. Everybody knows that Facebook or IE or Firefox always have a couple bugs to where crazy shit happens. So what I will do is actually I'll create another Dale Smith account. I will copy that picture and I'll add him to the admins, which is really my account. So when people, mentally they know that if they go to this page and they see 2 Dale Smiths, well, it's just a freak of nature. It's just weird, So they'll just overlook that. So when they do check the SSL or they do later try to prevent the man-in-the-middle attack, I still have access to all of this stuff to keep testing my Facebook penetration. I know a lot of people are playing with Facebook apps and APIs with Facebook to gain access. I'm not that smart, so I haven't been able to do any of that, but I would like to see what you gain from things like that, because then you can actually add admins through the API. So as people, I wrote an article on socialmediasecurity.com about Firesheep and attacking corporate America with it. And then more people were basically starting to check the SSL option or the HTTPS secure browsing, and I wasn't getting in as much as I really wanted to. But again, as marketing was growing all these networks, they either didn't have the time to do their social media, so they would outsource the social media stuff to marketing companies, or they would get these tools to help them with multiple accounts. Things like TweetDeck, Hootsuite, Marketme. I have a list somewhere to basically help manage one interface with multiple social media accounts. And those tools actually did the same mistake that Facebook and Twitter and all them did, is when they first built these tools, they didn't build them over SSL. So now we basically changed Firesheep and our man-in-the-middle attacks to basically include those tools. So now, instead of looking for, I still look for Facebook accounts, but I also look for Hootsuite, Sproutlet, some other tools to gain their cookies, because that gives me even more information. That gives me, if I'm able to take over your Hootsuite account, I have one interface to basically look at your LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook page, Ning, I think it does YouTube, which I really don't do much with that stuff, but now it's really easy for me to basically update and keep track of everything that you're doing. And now I have a really easy tool to send you direct messages with malware, LinkedIn, or dirty links and things like that through just one interface to all of your followers at the same time. So wrote an article on Firesheep's Revenge, which is also there, showing people how to gain access to these tools, which then allows you to add users and keep your access through that. Marketme is kind of spammy and kind of fun. The one thing that I like to use with Marketme is it has an auto follow function on it, and people hate that. So I have some more statistics to come, but I'm not done with all of those tests. But I'll hopefully maybe in the next 4 or 5 months I'll repost on social media security on the outcome of those. So any questions on Facebook man-in-the-middle attacks? Rock on. So that's my contact info, kind of. I mean, it's just my Twitter, and we're about to launch socialmediahackers.com. It's going to be a tool to help with some social media prevention with botnets, followers, Twitters, things like that. So there's more to come on that. I don't know how I'm doing on time, but I think I'm done. So.
you.